History of the Yankees-Red Sox saga. It's the third game of a four-game set that's been all Sox so far.
A Yankees season seemingly headed nowhere had been revived thanks to a 3-week run putting New York firmly in the playoff chase. Then arch rival and AL East leader Boston came calling. Thursday, the Yankees run into trouble late, even where they least expected it. Then last night, another late lead, only to be done in by two booming Boston bats. Another loss today, and to paraphrase Yogi Berra, it might start feeling late awfully early around here again. On a picture postcard afternoon for baseball in the Bronx, Fox Saturday Baseball presents a September AL Eastern Division showdown between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. It's the Red Sox with the best record in the American League enjoying their biggest division lead of the season, while the Yankees look up at the rest of the pack in the wild card race, 2.5 back. With Tim McCarver, Matt Vasgersian, welcome inside the broadcast booth. Yes, Tim, the Yankees are just 2.5 back in the wild card race still, but the first two games of this series have not gone according to plan for Joe Girardi.
Yeah, entering this series, I think the Yankees had a rosy outlook on Thursday. That's turned to an outlook of concern with young David Huff starting today. The first Yankee start, usually you'd go 5 innings with Huff and then go to the bullpen. Well, look at the guys who are not available for Joe Girardi today. 4 main cogs in the bullpen, and I think obviously David Huff's going to have to go deeper into the ballgame.
Yeah, the Yankee bullpen has not fared well to start this series, and it's the very prolific offense of the Boston Red Sox, the highest run-scoring team in baseball, that is to blame.
Led by Shane Victorino. He has game-winning hits the first 2 games of this series. And Victorino, a switch hitter, hitting primarily right-handed. And when the Red Sox signed him to a 3-year deal before the season started, I don't think they realized how much they would be getting out of the talented center fielder / right fielder.
Victorino's homered in each of the first 2 games of the series. He leads off this afternoon. Well, the Red Sox and Yankees have met well over 2,100 times through the years, and when those meetings come in September, they are usually very significant. This afternoon's no exception, with playoff implications on the line. We're back with the starting lineups and the opening pitch from the Bronx next. Taco Bell Red Sox starting lineup brought to you by Taco Bell. Sometimes you gotta live Moss. Today's game is brought to you and presented by Budweiser. Grab some buds. And now to the Red Sox. Shane Victorino leads off in the absence of Jacoby Ellsbury, who went back to Boston to get a bone bruise on his foot examined today. We'll have more on his status as we continue. Johnny Gomes gets a start in left field, batting number 2. Pedroia, Ortiz, and Napoli. Plenty of thunder 3 through 5. Will Middlebrooks has had a terrific run. He's homered in 3 straight. Jackie Bradley Jr. just called up today. Brian LaFarnway and Xander Bogarts make the start for the Red Sox. The opening pitch is brought to you by Budweiser, the official beer of Major League Baseball. Great times awaiting. Grab some buds. We are ready for Game 3 of this big 4-game weekend series with David Huff on the mound, making his first start as a Yankee this afternoon under tough circumstances. New York enduring back-to-back difficult losses, trying to remain postseason relevant here in early September.
Postseason relevant with a guy making his first start for the New York Yankees in David Huff.
You see some of Huff's numbers of late out of the bullpen. He has certainly earned a spot in the rotation, at least for the time being. Tim, the scouting report on the veteran left-hander.
Obtained from Cleveland on waivers in May. First start for the Yankees. And we'll try to bring that back unless you're taking an Evelyn Woods class like I haven't.
It's a ball and 2 strikes on Shane Victorino, leading things off.
There, fastball, cutter, changeup. Now you've got it all.
Victorino's had a terrific series, as has the Red Sox lineup in general. He swings and misses to start the afternoon today. Let's take a look at what the Yankees have defensively this afternoon. A few different looks. Eduardo Nunez makes another start at third base today in place of Alex Rodriguez, who gets the day off after 2 tough night games. It's Soriano, Gardner, and Suzuki in the outfield. Austin Romine doing the catching here today. 1 gone for Johnny Gomes. The Red Sox left fielder batting in the 2 spot this afternoon. And I think the fact, Tim, that each of the first 2 games have gone in very decidedly Red Sox-Yankees fashion, and that's to say a lot of pitches, a lot of pitching changes, and a lot of runs, means that today both managers have changed up their looks a little bit. John Farrell credited with so much of the Red Sox 2013 turnaround.
Rightly.
Boston already with 3 weeks of regular season play left has earned 17 more victories than all of last year. And on the other side, there are a lot of people, Tim, who feel like Joe Girardi's best managerial work has come this season.
Yeah, I think your number 1 and 2 picks for manager of the year are opposing one another today. I think John Farrell will win it, but Joe Girardi's done his finest job as the Yankee manager.
2 balls and 2 strikes to count to Johnny Gomes, and a swing and a miss. Back-to-back strikeouts begin David Huff's first start as a Yankee.
For the most part, David Huff has a breaking ball, but for the most part, it's fastball, changeup.
Two gone, bases empty now for the 4-time All-Star Dustin Pedroia. Pedroia coming off a 3-for-5 game 2 in this series a night ago, and has usually reserved much of his best work for left-handed opposing starters. A .345 hitter against southpaws this year. It's 1-1 from the left-hander David Huff. A major league high 59 hits and 20 doubles against lefties this year. He's jammed, left his knuckles at the plate as he bounces that one to Robinson Cano. And 1, 2, 3 go the Red Sox at the hand of David Huff.
Impressive.
Today's Yankees lineup brought to you by Taco Bell. Sometimes you got to live Moss. Gardner, Jeter, and Cano off the top. Robbie Cano's hit safely in 5 straight. Alfonso Soriano homered yesterday. It's been a big part of this Yankee late season turnaround. Curtis Granderson DHs this afternoon. Eduardo Nunez, a noted Red Sox killer, bats 6th at the third base spot tonight. And it's Overbay, Suzuki, and Romine rounding things out for the Yankees this afternoon.
There have been a lot of starting pitchers where the numbers have been deceptive, but none more so in the perhaps the history of September baseball than for John Lackey. An 8-12 record, and the Red Sox simply cannot score for him like they can for the rest of the staff. He hopes that is not the case today.
Brett Gardner ready to lead things off for New York as he takes strike 1.
Monumentally deceptive, and he is all of that, an uber competitor. And saves some runs for me. He is pleading with the Red Sox offense.
0-1 pitch is sprayed to shortstop for the rookie Xander Bogarts, who throws out Gardner, and there's one away. Let's take a look at the defense behind John Lackey this afternoon. This is not the usual group for John Farrell. Gomes, Bradley, and Victorino in the outfield this afternoon. Middlebrooks and Bogarts on the left side of the infield. Xander Bogarts making just his 3rd major league start at shortstop. Some of the regulars on the right side of the infield, and Ryan Lavarnway behind the plate. The Red Sox were hoping to have Jared Saltalamacchia available today. A cranky lower back has had him on the sidelines these last number of nights, and they're hoping that day for Salty will be tomorrow. So with one gone, here's Derek Jeter, who picks on the first pitch and bounces it once again to Bogarts. 2 quick outs for John Lackey to start his day.
Talked about David Huff and a surprise starter here in September for a team in the pennant race. How about Bogarts, 20 years old, starting at shortstop for a Red Sox team, 7.5 games in first place. He is some talent, this young man.
Xander Bogarts was one of the youngest players in AAA.
Yeah.
Let alone here in the big leagues in September in a pennant race, mind you. So 2 gone, bases empty now for Robinson Cano, who, as we mentioned a moment ago, has hit safely in 5 straight. 24 of 30 with a base hit for Robinson Cano. Well, the scores the past couple of nights in this series have not been very optimistic for Yankee fans. We made that point when we went on the air. New York still just 2.5 back in the wild card race. Tampa Bay has fallen on hard times, and they've prevented the Yankees from losing any ground. It's still a relevant note that with the Yankees losing 9-8 and then 12-8 last night, it's the first time that the Yankees have scored 8 or more runs in back-to-back games and lost them both at home since 1911.
That just is staggering. They were the New York Highlanders then. They weren't even the Yankees until 2 years later in 1913.
Those familiar certainly with Yankees Red Sox lore, they know that these games are usually very thorough in terms of the box score. I'm trying to be diplomatic here. They take a while, usually a lot of runs and a lot of names being scratched on and off, and the first 2 games of this series have certainly been no exception. A ball and 2 strikes. It remains to Robinson Cano. John Lackey's last starting assignment came Monday against the Tigers, and he was terrific. And it was one of those nights you spoke of, Tim, where he got 0 run support. Off to a good start this afternoon as he catches Cano looking to the second. 9-time All-Star David Ortiz leads off. We go there 0-0. telecast is sponsored by Ford. Only Ford gives you EcoBoost fuel economy and a whole lot more. And by Taco Bell's new fiery Doritos Locos Tacos. Live Más. Back inside Yankee Stadium, Red Sox and Yankees scoreless after a quick opening inning this afternoon.
Atypical between these two teams.
Yeah, write that one down. David Ortiz leads things off to start the visitors' half of the second. It has been a big week for Big Papi. Wednesday night against the Tigers, 2 home runs. His club record 39th multiple home run game as a Boston player. It was a night that also included his 2000th major league hit. Ortiz, Napoli, and Middlebrooks here against the left-hander David Huff in the second. 2 balls and no strikes. Ortiz 2 for 9 in the first 2 games of the series as he swings and misses at a breaking ball. 2-1.
Yeah, it's rare for the Red Sox to score a lot of runs and see David Ortiz 2 for 9 in those 2 games. Usually he's right in the thick of it.
Says so much about this cast of characters that John Farrell has managed to the best record in the American League today. Ortiz with a swing and a drive, well hit out to right field. Ichiro back at the wall. He can't make the play. A booming leadoff double for David Ortiz.
First hit of the ball game, a fastball right down the pipe. David Ortiz undeterred, left-hander, right-hander, doesn't matter. That's a ball that Ichiro would have caught up with, I think, as few as 3 years ago. Made a play on a ball that hit the top of the fence in last night's ball game, where he arrived at the same time, and it looked like he did the same thing there. That's a ball that normally you see Ichiro catch, but not there.
Here's Mike Napoli now with a chance to drive in the game's first run. Napoli can also lay claim to having a big week. It seems like you're saying that every week for Mike Napoli in September. A grand slam last night as a part of the win. A 5-for-7 series so far for the ex-Ranger and Angel. Let's take it back to last night. We say another grand slam for Mike Napoli because he's made a habit of this. His 19 home runs, second highest total on the team. A big September performer is at it again in 2013. Three balls and no strikes.
How charming and warm. You hit a grand slam home run, go back to your teammates pulling your beard. Charming.
The beard has become something of a rallying cry in the 2013 Red Sox fashion template. Some wearing it better than others. Napoli swats a high fly ball out to left. Soriano can only watch. This is more than a fly ball. This one's gone. Well, no sooner do we extol the virtues of Mike Napoli's power than he gets the scoring started this afternoon.
Well, what a great thing to look forward to. More beard pulling. Whatever works. All right, guys, don't disappoint us. Que pasa?
Or maybe the high fives and then the beard pulls. 2-0 Boston as those numbers document just how hot Mike Napoli has been. And now Will Middlebrooks. You know, it sounds cliche. As you can see, Middlebrooks also cultivating the beard to the best of his ability, at least. But getting back to the earlier statement about how John Farrell feels like this Red Sox team is more of a team. I think any winning team likes to say that about themselves, Tim. But the Red Sox really believe it. The sum of the parts, if you will. Well, there you go.
You never see that in the Yankee dugout because, of course, the Yankees forbid facial hair. It really doesn't matter. That ball was as high as it was far.
It was indeed. There's a little pop into shallow center field. Back from second base is Cano, and that's the first out of the inning. Well, the first out for David Huff, though trailing 2-0. The latest Yankee reclamation project in a season that's had a lot. And for more on that, we say hello to Ken Rosenthal.
It's kind of remarkable that he's even here today. Designated for assignment 3 times by May 28th. The 3rd time was by the Yankees, who had claimed him on waivers from the Indians just 3 days before. Huff had the right to go to another organization at that point, but he chose to stay, in part because he had hit it off with pitching coach Larry Rothschild, who had recommended that he lower his arm slot, and in part because general manager Brian Cashman had told him, hey, David, we have wanted you for a long time. In fact, the Yankees' interest goes back to the end of the 2006 season when they were trying to trade Gary Sheffield. They asked for Huff in a trade with the Indians, but Huff was a former #1 pick, and the Indians at that time said no.
And Kenny, he's certainly done what he can to earn a starting spot. We took a look at some numbers earlier about how effective Huff had been in the bullpen. It should be noted that this is the spot in the rotation once occupied by Phil Hughes, who is now working in the bullpen. Here's Ryan Lavarnway now with 2 in and 2 away here in the top half of the second. Lavarnway getting an opportunity to play while Jared Saltalamacchia's back is on the mend. He started the series opener here on Thursday and drove in a couple of runs on a 2-for-4 night.
Usually pitching coaches have a tough time getting pitchers to stay on top of their pitches. With Larry Rothschild and David Huff, it was as Ken mentioned, dropping your arm down and making sure that you throw it like a position player does.
2 balls and a strike to Lavarnway. Little pop off the skinny part of the bat right to the first baseman Lyle Overbay. No further damage in the Red Sox half of the second. But one swing of the bat by Mike Napoli has started the scoring this afternoon. It's 2-0 Boston. Today's telecast is sponsored by Budweiser, the official beer of Major League Baseball. Great times are waiting. Grab some Bud. Alfonso Soriano leads things off in the home half of the second. Yankees trailing 2-0 early this afternoon with Tim McCarver and Ken Rosenthal, Matt Vasgersian. It's Alfonso Soriano, Granderson, and Nunez, the middle of the order for New York. John Lackey set the Yankees down in order to start his afternoon and is even 1-1 with Alfonso Soriano. Well, no discussion of the Yankees' late season turnaround would be complete, Tim, without giving proper credit to Alfonso Soriano. The hope was that he would shore up the right side of the lineup. He has done more than shore it up. He has put it on his back.
He really has.
Foul.
Boy, that's a good way of explaining it, Matt, because that's exactly what number 12 has done.
With all the notable injuries, the right side was hit particularly hard by the injury bug and by underperformance, to be quite honest. And even with Soriano, right-handed hitters have really struggled in Yankee pinstripes this year. But here's the impact that Soriano has had. 13 home runs and 43 runs batted in since being acquired at the end of July. The most in Major League Baseball over that period.
I'll tell you, with 2 strikes, Lackey's throwing too hard to put the shift on here. Soriano had a hit on Thursday night through the vacated second base hole. I think he planned straight up right here. The combination of Lackey throwing hard, Soriano, a more established hitter. You've got one guy on the right side of the infield. Sometime during this game, he could get burned if Lackey continues to have that good fastball.
Still 2 balls and 2 strikes. You know, it's interesting to see how opposing teams play guys like Alfonso Soriano, David Ortiz. Some will stunt it and put that shift on more often than not. Others leave it alone. And there are a lot of people, Tim, who feel like there's almost too much intel out there.
I think so. I agree with that. In fact, I was leading to that.
Full count now.
Kurt Simmons, a great left-handed pitcher in the 50s and early 60s, even to the late 60s, used to say, Doubleday put him there for a reason. Play him straight away. And there's a lot of brilliance in that remark.
3 balls and 2 strikes to Alfonso Soriano, and the payoff pitch misses for ball 4. Leadoff hitter reaches. There are other games in progress this afternoon, including the White Sox and Orioles. For a Pepsi game break, we say hello to Greg Amsinger.
Hey, Matty, thank you very much. Let's go to Baltimore. Chris Davis having himself a year. Going the other way against Hector Santiago and the White Sox. This will put the O's up 1-0 early on. Now, Matty, I know you love stats, so get your number 2 pencil ready. Chris Davis has 48 homers and now 39 doubles on the year. Could have the big league's 3rd ever 50-40 season. Others, Babe Ruth in 1921 and Albert Bell in 95. Back to you.
Wow. And Greg, it still might not be enough to win him the American League's MVP award.
That last pitch to Soriano was a 3-2 breaking ball. It hung up in the strike zone. Lackey wanted that pitch for strike 3. Instead, it was ball 4, called by home plate umpire Sam Holbrook. It's close.
0-1 the count to Curtis Granderson. Bunting. Lackey gets on it and gets Granderson at first.
He had to make that play because, again, the shift was on. I mean, Curtis Granderson's a good bunter. Had he gotten this more toward the third base line, Lackey's got too much to do. Good play by John Lackey, and if he doesn't make it, nobody will.
How do you feel about that, about Granderson, who's one of your bigger power threats, trying to bunt for a base hit early in the night?
I think with the shift on, if they're giving it to you, take it.
Yep.
Of course, in this ballpark, I understand feelings of people who feel like that question was swayed
I did put a little sway in it, didn't I?
You did. That was good, though. That was very good.
Here's Eduardo Nunez with the runner in scoring position now. That's that short porch that kind of leads to that sway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can certainly understand that. It's tougher to do in this ballpark than it would be in a park like Comerica Park, for instance.
Lackey with the long set, and out of the stretch, the 1-0 pitch is in for a strike. Tim, the Ford keys to the game this afternoon.
More award-winning stuff. Roaring momentum. 41 runs their last 3 games. That included that 20-4 last game of the series against the Detroit Tigers on Wednesday night. As far as the Yankees are concerned, gets back to pitching. And to have that as your plight in this ballpark is very difficult too.
There's a strike from Lackey to Nunez, and it makes it a ball and 2 strikes now.
Yankee Stadium, one of the toughest parks to keep the ball in the park.
Yankee pitching has been a part of the story this year. Veteran staff. Some of it's been beaten up by injury. Some of it has underperformed as Nunez swings and misses, and there are 2 away.
Good pitch from Lackey, breaking ball off the plate and playing on the aggressiveness of Eduardo Nunez.
So 2 gone now for the left-handed hitter Lyle Overbay. Tomorrow afternoon in the series finale, it's going to be Hiroki Kuroda on the mound for New York. The arm, as we get back to that pitching discussion for the Yankees, Tim, that had been the most consistent in the rotation until very recently. Kuroda has, whether it's overuse, whether it's the rigors of August and September, he has not fared as well post All-Star break. CC Sabathia's had his trouble. Andy Pettitte. It's all been well documented. But Kuroda tomorrow against Red Sox left-hander John Lester in the series finale, and the Yankees are in a situation now where they're hoping for a series sweep.
Of course, with Andy Pettitte, had he had a little more help from the bullpen, he could have won his last 2 outings where he pitched well. But the bullpen came in and blew it. The Yankee bullpen is just worn out. I mean, worn out. Because they had to be relied on for most of the season.
Well, they have set a franchise record for most players used on the roster this year, and it's a number that keeps growing. When the AAA season has ended, as it has, and the Yankees are calling up relievers from Scranton Wilkes-Barre, and the team isn't even together right now. They're calling guys at home who've already begun their off-season process. Then you know that there's some desperation involved. Overbay dumps a 1-0 pitch into right center field. It's going to bring around Soriano, and New York is on the board this afternoon.
Partly answering those 2 runs the Red Sox scored in the top of the inning. Overbay with a big 2-out base hit to score Soriano.
So Lackey, with his lead cut in half, now faces Ichiro Suzuki with 2 out, a run in, and a runner at first. Ichiro did not start yesterday, had 1 plate appearance after entering the game defensively in the 7th. But back out there this afternoon against a man who he has faced often. Over 100 plate appearances in Ichiro's career against John Lackey, as the 2 formerly resided in the AL West for many years. A ball and 2 strikes. a .287 hitter career is Ichiro against his opponent this afternoon in those 108 plate appearances. Blackie's 1-2 pitch is stroked into the opposite field. Vintage Ichiro, dare I say. Runners at first and second with 2 gone.
U.S. Open being played here in New York City. Even at Yankee Stadium, a tribute. That was just served perfectly in front of Johnny Gomes in left field.
So now the number 9 hitter, Austin Romine. Romine has been a part of a catching platoon for most of 2013 that the Yankees have employed to replace a player that they seem to miss. And I don't think anybody undervalued Russell Martin when he was here. But how important Russell Martin was to the Yankees has really been magnified in his absence. That's a foul ball up the third baseline.
Russell Martin proving his worth with that Pittsburgh Pirate pitching staff.
Allowed to leave via free agency. He's made a big impact on the Bucks. John Farrell's going to come out and discuss that ball to the third baseline with Joe West.
Of course, the only thing that matters is where the ball went over the bag. Middlebrooks caught the ball in foul territory, and it was called a foul ball. I think John Farrell wants Joe West to get some help from home plate umpire Sam Holbrook. Boy, it was close. And you can't tell from that shot right there. We do not have a camera down the left field line.
You know, about as conclusive as we could have gotten there was based on where the shadow of the baseball was. Here's another chance for Middlebrooks. And that cuts off our discussion of instant replay and anything else that might have come from that inning.
Right.
A run for the Yankees in the second. Will return to the Bronx after a word from your local Fox station. As we start the top half of inning number 3, Xander Bogarts, followed by the top of the order, Shane Victorino and Johnny Gomes. Boston striking first on the 2-run home run by Mike Napoli. The Yankees get one of them back on the RBI single off the bat of Lyle Overbay in the bottom of the inning. Strike one to Xander Bogarts at 20 years old. As we had mentioned earlier, not only was he the youngest player in the International League this season, the AAA circuit that he played in, but he is the 3rd youngest active major leaguer in the big leagues today. Only Bryce Harper and Jurickson Profar way in younger. And that's good for extra bases into the left field corner. Xander Bogarts with an inning opening double to kick off the 3rd.
That swing is so fluid. His throws are so fluid. His athleticism is so fluid. One of 5 major league players from the island of Aruba, where baseball was played when he was a child, but it wasn't organized as it is in, for instance, the Dominican Republic or even Curacao. Andrew Jones started that influx of major leaguers from the island of Curacao.
Here's Shane Victorino from the island of Hawaii. Bunting foul to start things. It's 0-1. Well, Xander Bogarts is a talent, and he has created a lot of interesting discussions in Red Sox Nation in terms of where his future may be. There are those who feel a Manny Machado-like conversion may be in the offing. There's a young third baseman, Will Middlebrooks, who's played a lot better since his AAA recall. Will it be shortstop for Bogarts? Will it be third base? Will there be a move to the outfield in the future? 1 ball and 1 strike to count to Shane Victorino. This much is known about Xander Bogarts. He is extremely talented, and he's given John Farrell a lot of flexibility. Ken Rosenthal, as far as where he may end up in the future, is there any leading camp in that discussion?
Well, Matt, the Red Sox seemed to signal their intentions when they traded Jose Iglesias to the Tigers. That opened up shortstop for the future for Bogarts. Stephen Drew on a 1-year contract. Conceivable they could want him back, or conceivable they could turn it over to Bogarts as soon as next year. The other element in this, of course, is Will Middlebrooks. And since returning from AAA, he has been on fire, solidifying third base for himself yet again.
Yeah, the USA Today Minor League Player of the Year, Bogarts, has made everybody play a little bit better. At least that's John Farrell's take. And Victorino wears that one. He gets hit in the left leg. Runners at first and second now to start third.
Where's that one, huh?
So to speak.
Interesting way to express that. Trying to get out of the way. Victorino has had a difficult time. He crowds the plate more than he used to as a right-handed batter. He stood off the plate as a switch hitter, both left-handed and right-handed, but because of a bad left hamstring, he's been forced to hit right-handed all the time so he doesn't re-injure that left hamstring.
There's Johnny Gomes now with 2 runners aboard. It's the 16th time that Shane Victorino has been hit by a pitch this year. It leads the American League and has turned him into something of a modern-day Don Baylor. Johnny Gomes, something of a modern-day Carl Yastrzemski, playing left field this afternoon and hitting a 3-run home run to make it 5-1 Boston.
That was a high changeup to a guy whom I've always considered to be a winner. Every place he's gone, he's won. Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, last year with Oakland, a team that won 94 games. And this year with a team that's going to the playoffs and could very easily make it to the World Series. Johnny Gomes, 3-run shot.
I mean, here they go again. This is a Red Sox lineup that has been hitting home runs with reckless abandon throughout the course of the week, and it's a different looking lineup today, and 2 more home runs, 2+ innings into the day.
15 home runs in their last 4 games. 15.
Here's Dustin Pedroia now. A 3-run inning, still nobody out here in the visitors' third. But Johnny Gomes has brought not only a lot of versatility and that winning component you talk about, Tim, but he's brought a lot of personality into a clubhouse that by many accounts needed a change in personality after last year, Ken Rosenthal.
Talking with Jake Peavy before the game, Tim and I were, and Jake said when he was traded over here, he went up to Gomes and said, "Hey, Johnny, how you doing?" And Johnny responded, "Another day closer to the parade." And Jake's point was that these guys, the Red Sox, think only about winning. It's all they care about. It's their only agenda. And that is one great comment. Another day closer to the parade.
That is a great line.
One gone as Pedroia pops up in the infield, and now it's David Ortiz who doubled and scored in front of the Napoli home run in the second. Well, when you think about how the Red Sox kind of recrafted themselves in the offseason, and we're well past talking about the disastrous 2012 season,
where they won only 69 games. That was the worst as far as a winning record is concerned since 1965 for the Sox.
There was consternation and hand-wringing from the start of spring training through the end of September last year. And not only did the Red Sox decide a managerial change was in order, bringing in John Farrell, but they infused the roster with free agent talent that may have been below the radar. Oh my goodness, David Ortiz trying to put that one in the top tank, into the corner and right. Ichiro runs it down at the wall. And the 10-time Gold Glover gets a nice round of applause from the home faithful.
Ichiro runs it down by going up, and his timing was perfect on that play. Being shown on the scoreboard here. Getting up perfectly. Nice play.
As the late great voice of the Seattle Mariners said many times, Dave Niehaus, Ichiro, you are unbelievable. I mean, there's nothing he can't do. Still pushing age 40. David Ortiz knows that firsthand. So 2 gone for Mike Napoli now. Napoli's home run in the second, his 20th of the year. And it fits the profile for a player that shines in the month of September. His career numbers in what is the season's final month happen to be his best month of the season. 302 in September, 36 September home runs, and OPS, that combination of on base and slugging, of over 1,000 in September.
We're talking about a guy who would have been the most valuable player of the 2011 World Series against the St. Louis Cardinals when he was with Texas. How about that postseason?
Yeah, you bet.
ALCS, World Series.
And of all the free agent imports, getting back to what we discussed earlier, that Ben Cherington and his staff brought into Fenway Park this year, perhaps none more important than Mike Napoli. It was a deal that took a long time to consummate based on health records, and the deal had to be changed, but Napoli has been every bit the performer they envisioned. He's homered this afternoon, and so has Johnny Gomes. 2 of the 2013 New Sox have made it 5-1 Boston. But John Lackey must feel like it's his lucky day. He's got some runs to work with this afternoon, solving for the time being what has been a season-long issue for him.
On June 26th against the Colorado Rockies, interleague play, of course, that was the last time Lackey had 5 runs of support this early. Here's a guy since the All-Star break who received 2.18 runs per start, the lowest in the major leagues. So I'm sure the hitters are saying today, all right, John, that's what you've been asking for. There they are.
He's in front of Brett Gardner to start the third, 0-2. Gardner, Jeter, and Cano. Well, there's one on every staff. At least that's what a lot of people think. One guy, that is to say, that suffers from the lack of run support, and that guy on the 2013 Red Sox staff seems to be John Lackey.
I think that's true for whatever reason.
On the ground for Bogarts and past him. Tough play, a ball likely to be scored, an infield single off the bat of Brett Gardner. Dodgers and Reds in Cincinnati. Let's go to Greg Amsterdam in the MLB Network studios for a game break.
Matty, as you know, the Reds began the day 2 games out of first place in the NL Central, taking on the Dodgers, and that guy, Yasiel Puig. He's reached base twice, 2-run shot. Gives the Dodgers a 3-2 lead in the third. Matty, Tim, I don't know about you, but I am enjoying Puig Mania. Send it back to you.
His impact, Greg, has been undeniable on not only the Dodgers, but the NL West, the National League in general.
If you're a baseball fan, there's no denying that. I mean, the guy is fun. I mean, when the Dodgers lose, it's an event now. They lost to Cincinnati last night, 3-2. They've opened up a 12-game lead over the Arizona Diamondbacks.
They might finish this thing off with a bigger division trouncing than the one the Atlanta Braves have enjoyed for much of the year.
Perhaps.
Double digits.
Yeah.
0-1 pitch bounces away from Ryan Lavarnway, and Gardner, who was running on the pitch, gets into second base easily. Credit Brett Gardner with a stolen base, his 24th of the year.
That's a tough pitch to handle because Lavarnway was caught in between. A lot of times you don't know whether reach for it and try to backhand it with your glove or to put your body in front of it. Caught in between, wild pitch by Lackey.
So no stolen base credited to Brett Gardner on that ball. In the eyes of the official scorer, he was not running with the pitch. Fact remains, though, that the Yankees are looking to run today. They've been doing that all series long. In Thursday's loss, they stole the season-high 6 bases. And with the combination of Lackey and Lavarnway today, you can ratchet that up even more.
Right. And by the way, those 6 stolen bases by 6 different players.
They ran early and often. There was a double steal in the mix, but 6 stolen bases by 6 different players, to Tim's point. And today, it'll be even more significant with John Lackey on the mound. And on his watch, there have been 35 bases swiped. That's the highest total with any starting pitcher.
By far.
By far. Two balls and 2 strikes to Derek Jeter. With a troubling bat of Robinson Cano waiting next, and then Soriano in the hold. Good opportunity for the Yankees to try to cut into the deficit here on the appeal. No swing, says Andy Fletcher.
He did not go, contrary to what the first base umpire said about Shane Victorino the other night, and then ran Jabba Chamberlain after Chamberlain was taken out of the game. That umpire, by the way, is at third today, Joe West.
Jeter bounces that to Napoli, so he's retired, but the out does successfully advance Gardner. He's at third now with 1 gone. Well, Derek Jeter is still very much in what folks think is a spring training type feel. Not in terms of his mindset, but in terms of where his body is. And that's what happens when you miss 125 games.
3 different stints on the disabled list.
So it'll be Robinson Cano who'll try to get that runner in from third base with 1 gone. Cano was a strikeout victim back in the first. You know, there was an expectation around here that when Derek Jeter came off the disabled list, it would be vintage Derek Jeter right from the start.
Unlikely.
Yeah, that's not how it's played out.
No, and the reason it's unlikely is normally he gets off to a slow start when the season starts. So if this is like spring training to him, it would follow that that a slow start is more normal than the other way around.
0-2 the count to Robinson Cano. Even for a guy like Derek Jeter. One of many Yankees to miss significant time this year. I mean, you almost forget about the free agent signing of Kevin Youkilis.
You do.
Missed virtually the entire season. Mark Teixeira has missed the entire season. Nothing in 2 the count to Robinson Cano. That's faded into left center field, an RBI base hit. So the Yankees are able to counterpunch once again and get one of them back. It's now 5-2 Boston.
Good play by Johnny Gomes in left center field to hold Robinson Cano to a single.
One out, 1 on, 1 in now for Alfonso Soriano, who walked and scored in the second. And John Lackey starts him with strike 1. Curtis Granderson waiting next. As Soriano sends a little pop into shallow right. Long run for Victorino, who gets there to make the catch.
Talked to John Farrell further about the defense of Victorino, and he said in essence he is a center fielder that plays right field for the Red Sox. And when you think about Fenway Park, where of course the Red Sox play half of their games, and Victorino has a lot of ground to cover in right field. It's a bigger right field than most conventional stadia.
We know about Victorino's offensive skill set because we've talked about it for such a long time. Curtis Granderson digs in now. What you might not get just by flipping over the back of a baseball card is how good Shane Victorino is defensively. And that's something that John Farrell's made it a point to talk about of late. With everybody glowing about his home runs as a right-handed batter, and that's certainly been a big part of the Red Sox success. Farrell says, and this kind of caught us by surprise, that he hasn't seen as good a defensive right fielder. Now, this is a guy that was around when Dwight Evans was playing right field at Fenway Park. It's a guy that's done a lot in baseball. And it's high words of praise for Shane Victorino, who's technically playing a little out of position out there.
I, by the way, did not bring this up in our meeting today, but I don't agree with John Farrell about Dwight Evans. I think Dwight Evans was far and away the best right fielder ever to grace Fenway Park. Had a chance to play with Dewey a couple of years in the mid-70s. He made it look easy. He was always there when the ball came down.
2 balls and 2 strikes to Granderson, and that's where I think so many of the defensive metrics that try to quantify the impact that a defender has it can be misleading. You're in the right place, and it doesn't quite look as flashy as if you have to move your feet, and then they can measure your steps and put that into some kind of a formula. Two balls and two strikes to Granderson. But Bill James, who is credited as being the forefather of most of the advanced baseball metrics that are more commonplace today, has a defensive runs saved statistic. It's kind of a hard one to get your head around. But Shane Victorino, according to the Bill James math, has saved 23 runs. And that's the most by any major league right fielder. Still 2 balls and 2 strikes on Curtis Granderson, whose legs are taking a beating this plate appearance. Big fastball puts him away. Only 1 in the New York half of the third. We're on to the 4th this afternoon. It's 5-2 Boston. Is sponsored by Firestone, reminding you that whatever you drive, drive a Firestone. And by Fox Sports 1. To find your channel, go to foxsports1.com. Back with Tim McCarver and Ken Rosenthal, Matt Vasgersian in New York. The Red Sox on top of the Yankees 5-2. Boston has had a pretty good run of it against their storied regional rivals this year. The Red Sox have hit almost 320 in their 14-plus games against New York this season. A big reason why they have come out ahead in the series thus far. Will Middlebrooks leads things off in the 4th. Middlebrooks, Bradley, and Lavarnway. The long ball has been the problem for David Huff so far today. A pair of them. 2-run shot by Mike Napoli. A 3-run dinger by Johnny Gomes. And there's a leadoff single off the bat of Will Middlebrooks. So the Red Sox have swung it big, but at least for the Yankees, they've been able to counter with a run in each of those innings, something we visited with Joe Girardi about moments ago.
Yeah, I mean, we're able to get some runs across the board. The big thing is we got to shut them down. They've been swinging the bats extremely well. They started at the 3rd place, and they've continued it here. And we got to keep the ball in the ballpark.
Joe, I think everybody admires your your composure through everything that's happened this year. Your most recent statement saying that if you get up in the morning and come to the ballpark, everything's fine. Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot worse things in life that, you know, people have to deal with. And, yeah, we've had some tough times here, and we've had a lot of injuries, but you got to fight through it. I mean, that's what life's all about, fighting through things.
Joe, thanks for the visit. Best of luck down the stretch.
Thanks, guys.
Back-to-back base hits open against David Huff as Jackie Bradley Jr. picks on the first pitch and singles into right. So once again, the fire hot for the Red Sox. Runners aboard with nobody out in the fourth. You know, you wonder how much longer the rope, as Larry Rothschild and Joe Girardi discuss what's happening with David Huff. But as you talked about when we went on the air, Tim, there aren't as many options in terms of long relief as the Yankees would like on a day like today.
Sean Kelly, not available. Preston Claiborne, not available. Boone Logan, not available. David Robertson, not available.
Here's Ryan LaVarnway now with runners aboard. Well, those last two names, that's very discouraging for the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, even though the rosters have been expanded here in September, you'd never know it by the look at the Yankees bullpen.
LaVarnway popped in the infield in his first try today. 1 ball and 1 strike. Well, it has been quite a feast for Red Sox bats here in New York this weekend.
If you're familiar with the history, Jim Miller, who is a right-handed pitcher, as you can tell. Jim Miller up and throwing. But if you're familiar with the history of these two teams, you may remember the massacre of the Yankees in early September 1978, and then the Boston massacre again in 2006, several decades later. Now, if the Red Sox win today and then win tomorrow in convincing fashion, you may see that change.
Ryan LaVarnway out to left center field. That's going to bring in at least one. Middlebrooks will score easily. Bradley's got great wheels. He'll get into third base without a throw. It's an RBI double by Ryan LaVarnway, and it's 6-2 Boston.
Larry Rothschild, the pitching coach of the Yankees, out to talk. What can you do? Tell you, the Red Sox are not talking their way through this series. They're pounding their way.
A reminder tonight, Fox College Saturday rolls on as Louisiana battles K-State on Fox Sports 1, and West Virginia tries to upset number 16 Oklahoma right here on Fox. Then in the nightcap, Washington State takes on 25th ranked USC back on Fox Sports 1. Something of a college football score perhaps evolving here in the Bronx this afternoon. David Huff's given up to 6 earned and 3+. And as Tim already mentioned, Jim Miller, one of the long guys, is up in the bullpen behind him. Runners at second and third with a run in and nobody out. Here's Xander Bogarts now. Yeah, to illustrate just how dire it's become in terms of the bullpen status for the Yankees. The AAA season is over with, and the Yankees are still calling guys up from Scranton. They found Jim Miller on a beach someplace. He had his feet up for the winter.
Oh.
Off the fists and bounced out to second for Cano. He'll yield the run for the out as Bradley scores to make it 7-2, and there's one away in the inning. Ken Rosenthal, the Yankees are calling guys that aren't even in uniform anymore.
Well, Matt Daly was in Hoboken, New Jersey, home yesterday, and Brian Cashman called him and said, hey, drive over the GW Bridge. We need you. The other guy you mentioned, Jim Miller, he was home in Virginia Beach, and he flew up this morning. So, yes, they are coming, and even though they are done for the season or were done for the season, they're trying to help the Yankees.
Yeah, and I'm sure that those guys would much rather be here than, back horsing around at home. They're playing in the big leagues in a pennant race, mind you.
Yeah.
Here's Shane Victorino now as the Yankees bring the infield in with a runner at third and one away. Shane was hit by a pitch in his most recent plate appearance. And hit by a pitch, by the way, for a major league leading 16th time. So much of that has to do with the fact that he's batting exclusively from the right side. He does not give any ground as a right-handed batter. And the numbers bear it out. In just over 70 plate appearances batting right-handed, he's already been hit by a pitch 9 times. He hits that one into left field. An RBI knock by Victorino. He'll get into second base. And it's 8-2 Boston.
Victorino started switch hitting when he was 22 years old. About 10 years ago. And sometimes when you move to the other side of the box, you don't know where you are. You don't know how close you are to the plate. That's why I think he's been hit 9 times.
We are close to a pitching change. In fact, Joe Girardi has made the move. We'll be right back. '13 Major League Baseball postseason on Fox, TBS, and MLB Network starting October 1st. Pitching change by the Yankees as David Huff is gone after 3 1/3 in favor of right-hander Jim Miller, who inherits quite a mess. An 8-2 deficit, 1 away, and a runner in scoring position as he faces Johnny Gomes. Gomes has hit one of the 2 Red Sox home runs today. Here's a 3-run shot in the 3rd. Bidding for another. This one's going to land fouled and left. Let's show you the one that didn't land foul. Bogarts and Victorino aboard, and as Tim said at the time, it was as high as it was deep. Number 12 for Johnny Gomes. Back up the middle and into center field, a base hit. Victorino will be waved around. He'll score without a play at the plate, and it's 9-2 Boston.
Gene Mauch, a great Major League manager, even though he's not in the Hall of Fame, never reached the World Series, used to say that a pitcher and a catcher's job is to keep the ball off the sweet part of the bat. Well, if that's the case, Gene, you're probably listening from above right now. There, for the last 2.5 games, there have not been a lot of balls kept off the sweet part of the bat by Yankee pitching.
Here's Dustin Pedroia now. Well, Shane Victorino has been a big part of the problem for New York. Not just this weekend, but all season long. 12 RBIs in 11 games against the Yankees. 2 balls and no strikes to Dustin Pedroia. You know, getting back to that end of the homestand, Tim, and you talked about the big 20-run uprising. That's 20 runs in a single night against the Tigers on Wednesday. Boston has now scored 50 runs over their last 4 games. The team record for runs in a 4-game span belongs to the 1950 Red Sox. That of Williams, Doer, Pesky and company. They scored 65 runs over a 4-game stretch during the 1950 season. That's in jeopardy the way these guys are going right now.
That's right.
Three balls and a strike to count to Dustin Pedroia. That's whacked into left. And it continues here in the 4th. Gomes to third. On a 1-out double off the bat of Dustin Pedroia.
Here's what the Red Sox have been doing all day on the sweet part of the bat.
Runs on 10 hits and counting.
And we're in the 4th inning with 1 out.
The Yankees play the infield in for David Ortiz. Ortiz is the 8th Boston player to bat in the inning. There's a high drive to deep center field. Gardner turning around, setting up shy of the wall to make the catch. Gomes and Pedroia tag up, and it's a 10-2 Red Sox score. Let's check in with the Orioles and White Sox. Greg Amsinger back at the MLB Network studios.
Matty, thank you. Paul Konerko's had a rough year, hitting under 250 with only 10 home runs, but he comes through here against Wei-Yin Chen. It'll put the White Sox on the board. More pitching in this game than the one you're enjoying at the moment. It's 1-1. Sox and O's. Keep in mind, Baltimore a half game ahead of the Yankees in those AL wildcard standings. Back to you.
Yeah, Greg, and 2 out in the wild card overall, but most troubling to Yankee fans, one of the teams that New York is trying to overcome. It's one thing when you're 2.5 back, as the Yankees are. It's everybody in front of you that you have to worry about. And in the case of the Yankees, in order to catch Texas and Tampa Bay, they've got to get past Cleveland and Baltimore. Well, Joe Girardi, you'll have some head-to-head opportunities with the Birds before the season is over. A ball and a strike to count to Mike Napoli. For Yankee fans just looking for a silver lining in what's been a pretty bad weekend to date, the fact that they've dropped 2 games and haven't lost any ground in the wild card, and that they have a relatively soft landing the last 9 games of the season. They've got 3 with the Giants, who've been struggling, and they end the year with the Houston Astros for 3.
Yeah, but Matty, that's a trap. Remaining games, you say the Astros, the Yankees finished the season against them. The Rays are struggling, and the Giants have fallen off their World Series champion perch. Everybody in September for a contender is in the first division or in first place as far as you're concerned. If you're a player, that's what guys. They've fallen into that trap too many times before when writers say, well, you got a soft schedule coming up, playing a lot of teams under 500 and all that sort of stuff. Those teams under 500 are just as potent as those teams that are leading their divisions.
And to your point, this isn't the NFL. And September roster expansion makes a second division team a little more dangerous.
That's a good point. Very good point.
Napoli jerks that into the corner and left and just fouled.
Yankees are probably thinking, finally, a broken bat. Moral victory. We finally broke a bat. You could hear it. He knew it immediately.
Success comes in very small steps on a day like today. Let's just break some bats. 2 balls and 2 strikes that count to Mike Napoli. Well, Thursday in the series opener, the Yankees came back after falling behind by as many as 5 runs. They took a late lead, only to watch Mariano Rivera, in a very rare occurrence, blow a save in the 9th. This is a little different story today. This is an 8-run deficit, and it's a little earlier in the day. Napoli sends that into shallow left. Soriano is on to make the catch, and that retires the side. Not before 5 more can score off Boston's bats. Through 3.5, it's 10-2 Red Sox. Well, if John Lackey was happy with 5 runs at the start of the 3rd inning, imagine how he feels up 10-2 here as he goes to work in the 4th. This is more runs than the Red Sox have scored in any previous John Lackey start this year. A 10-2 lead. Mike Napoli's been a big part of it with a 2-run home run. Eduardo Nunez leads things off in the Yankee half of the 4th. Nunez, Overbay, and Suzuki. Oh, 2 pitches sent into right center. And it gets past Victorino. Eduardo Nunez opens the 4th with a 2-base hit. Eduardo Nunez had a couple of base hits, a triple yesterday, and he has doubled here in the 4th. Now it's Lyle Overbay with a runner in scoring position. Eduardo Nunez, a player that seems to reserve his best work for the Boston Red Sox.
It's an expression that's been around baseball for a long, long time, that some pitchers have a very difficult time pitching with a big lead. I'm sure John Lackey is saying to himself right now, you just give me that lead and I'll see.
Lyle Overbay got to him with an RBI single in his first at bat. Here's a bouncer for Pedroia that'll advance Nunez 1 away. Well, at some point this afternoon, if the Yankees are going to get back into it, there's got to be a chunk of runs, a crooked number, if you will. They were able to counter with single scores in the 2nd and 3rd, but they've fallen behind even greater after the 5-run Red Sox 4th. Here's Ichiro now with a runner at 3rd and 1 away. And on the first pitch, that's hooked into the right field corner. An RBI double for Ichiro Suzuki, and it's 10-3 Boston.
That was a little lazy breaking ball that stayed inside, and Ichiro kept it fair, just barely down the right field line. He is such an unorthodox hitter at hanging breaking balls. I've always thought that the hangers inside are really the ones that are where he was, because he bails out so much.
Here's Austin Romine now.
I don't think I've ever seen a successful hitter that is quite like Ichiro. A man who has amassed over 4,000 hits professionally.
Romine sends a fly ball out to center field for Jackie Bradley Jr., and that's the 2nd out of the inning. This Tuesday, it's the premiere of Being the Finest on Fox Sports 1. Follow the lives of NYPD officers who come together on the football field and honor their fallen brethren through their unforgettable 2013 season. Being the Finest premieres Tuesday only on Fox Sports 1. Two gone now. Ichiro still aboard at 2nd, and it'll be back to the top of the order, Brett Gardner. Gardner singled and then scored a run back in the 3rd. That one almost hit him, and in fact it did hit him.
Trying to skip out of the way was Brett Gardner. This was a fastball inside, and looked like it hit him on the left foot.
So Gardner aboard as a hit batsman for the 8th time this year. Runners at 1st and 2nd now for Derek Jeter, looking for his first base hit of the afternoon.
You know, to follow up about Ichiro, that's a pitch right there that never would have hit Ichiro because he wouldn't have been there. The feet would have been gone.
That's right. fact, he might actually club that into left for a double.
Oh, perhaps.
Jeter, as we mentioned, hitless this afternoon, just 4 for 30 on this Yankee homestand. One of the hits on this homestand, however, a noteworthy one, a third-inning single in Tuesday's win against the White Sox. One that vaulted him past Hall of Famer Eddie Collins for sole possession of 9th place on the all-time hit list. Next up, in fact, only 4 base hits away, is Hall of Famer Paul Molitor, number 8 on the all-time chart.
1,876 runs scored by Derek Jeter. Mo figured that out before the game. That's 128 miles. The 1,876 runs scored 360 times around the bases, steps times 1,876 is 128 miles. That's a lot of running right there.
You bet. Number 1 by a long shot on the active hit list, of course, as he zeroes in on Paul Molitor on the all-time list. Robinson Cano next with 2 gone. That makes this Derek Jeter 2 strikeout bet a little bit more important when you're talking about a 7-run deficit. Couldn't hold on. Credit John Lackey with the strikeout, stranding a pair. The Yankees settle with 1 once again through 4. It's 10-3 Red Sox. At the top half of the 5th in what's turned into a long relief assignment. 10-3 Red Sox through just 4 innings so far this afternoon. Will Middlebrooks will lead things off in the Boston half of the 5th. Well, perhaps most encouraging to John Farrell today, the fact that his lineup's been able to score 10 runs on 10 hits without some of its marquee talent. Stephen Drew gets a day off in the middle of the series. And for a couple of straight now, the Red Sox have been without Jacoby Ellsbury. Ken Rosenthal has a little bit more on the status of the Red Sox upcoming free agent center fielder.
Well, Matt, his right foot is in a boot, and he went back to Boston to get examined. And the Red Sox were debating at game time whether to send him to Denver for a second opinion, or whether that second opinion could come through phone conversations and exchange of medical records, that type of thing. Either way, this could be ominous for the Red Sox, assuming Ellsbury is hurt more badly than we thought originally. Now, I did exchange texts with Scott Boras, Ellsbury's agent, and he said that Ellsbury could play, but the swelling remains, and they want to get it out of there, and they want to be extra careful with the playoffs coming up. But again, until we hear the results from the doctors, we don't have a firm answer on just what this means.
Yeah, Kenny, and the Red Sox particularly careful with Ellsbury because of not only his import on the roster, but because the franchise has been very aware of that particular bone in the foot. It's the one Dustin Pedroia broke a couple of years ago. Same thing said of Jason Varitek some years before that. So on a day like today, with a seemingly comfortable lead and some of the F-troopers already in the lineup, we asked John Farrell between innings if there was any thought to getting more of his non-regulars involved this afternoon.
Well, we've got a couple of guys already off their feet today, with Drew obviously on the bench, and obviously with Jacoby's situation. That's a whole other issue that we've got to deal with. But you know, I think the one thing, Matt, that it probably stands out over the course of the season is the overall depth. And it's not been the same guy every night contributing.
I would imagine, too, John, that when you have momentum going like that, there's very little a manager has to do in situations like that, right?
Stay the heck out of the way and let them go at it, because, this is a smart group. They're a good bunch of baseball players that know the game and understand what goes on inside it. And I think the more freedom we can give them to let that play out, we're getting the benefit from it.
John, thanks for the visit. Best of luck down the stretch.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, John.
Boy, and all this by design, Tim. You know, John Farrell's not the kind of guy that's going to thump his own chest. He's not going to speak about his own prowess.
Never.
However, he's been a big part of it. And the front office has done such a great job in Boston of recrafting this team. We started going in this direction earlier, but the roughly $100 million in free agent money that the Red Sox spent this winter for guys like Gomes, Napoli, we've talked about the group they've brought on. Compare that with the over $300 million in salary, $300 million plus, that the Angels spent on two players the last couple of years, in Josh Hamilton and Albert Pujols. And not to take anything away from those guys, MVP players, but at least this year, what was done in Boston looks a little bit better.
So the economic signing of free agents over this past winter followed the fabulous trade getting rid of such harmful salaries, harmful for the players that were sent to Los Angeles, harmful for the Red Sox, that is. Certainly not harmful for the Dodgers. But it was a very smooth move by Ben Sherrington. And I don't think anybody in baseball thought it would turn out as well for the Red Sox as it has.
Or as quickly.
Or as quickly, right.
You know, sooner had they moved that money off the books, then they spent it again.
Yeah, immediately.
2 balls and 2 strikes.
With upgraded players.
Full count now, 3-2 to Jackie Bradley Jr. And there's ball 4. A 1-out base runner in the Boston 5th as we once again check in with Greg Amsinger back at the MLB Network studios.
Matty, let's go to Baltimore. Dayon Viciedo at the plate. That pitch low in the zone, but he sends it straight out to center field against Wei-Yin Chen, and just like that, the White Sox, who are having a miserable road trip so far, are up 2-1 against the O's. That action in the top of the 5th. Let's get back to the Bronx.
It may be a good example there, Greg and Tim, of what you were talking about earlier, Mr. McCarver. The White Sox kind of dead and buried in the AL Central, yet with enough talent and with enough energy that comes from Robin Ventura to scare somebody, a playoff competitor down the stretch.
Yeah, a team that entering today's play had lost 8 in a row. 6 of those games, 3 to the Red Sox, 3 to the Yankees.
0-2 the count to Ryan Lavarnway. They're usually meaningful for somebody. You know, speaking of the White Sox and Orioles, Baltimore playing for their postseason lives.
It's like a golf shot.
Right.
Usually helps somebody. Maybe not the guy who hit it, but somebody else.
Well, the Red Sox and Yankees get together in September, and it's always meaningful for both teams. I mean, you can say that. It's almost always meaningful for both teams. In fact, the last time the Red Sox and Yankees played a meaningless, quote-unquote, September game, that is to say when both teams were mathematically out of the race, you have to go back to 1992. The final series of the year. The Red Sox came in 71-88. The Yankees were 75-84. Butch Hobson had the managerial lineup card in the Red Sox dugout. Buck Showalter was skippering the Yanks. There's a shot out to right center field that makes Gardner get into the gap before he can haul that one in for route number 2. But since that series in 1992, the Yankees and Red Sox have played 350 consecutive games against one another in which one or both teams were in contention. And it remains true, of course, today. Here's Xander Bogarts now with 2 gone. Two balls and no strikes.
I think concerning the Red Sox, you could say that the success this year has been one thing, but the depth that they've shown along with the success is so encouraging for the next decade. When you look at a guy like Bogarts, Will Middlebrooks, and what they got for Jose Iglesias, that would be Jake Peavy from the White Sox, a 3-team trade. So almost overnight, this garden of talent has grown for the Red Sox.
3 balls and a strike to count to Xander Bogarts. I think fans of Red Sox Nation, the club that used to be referred to as the Old Town team. Oh, Xander Bogarts making a bid for his first big league home run, and he's got it.
Oh my goodness.
By plenty. Over the visitors' bullpen in left. Wow.
Goodness.
You saw some of the police activity in left. They want that baseball back. The first in what looks to be a very promising career for Xander Bogarts. A pitching change, and we'll be right back. 90-minute pregame show live from Times Square. Join Terry, Howie, and the guys as they reveal live which superstar performer will be this year's halftime act at Super Bowl 48. A full day of NFL action begins with NFL's Fox NFL kickoff on Fox Sports 1 at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Fox NFL Sunday, 11:30 Eastern, right here on Fox. Pitching change after the mammoth 2-run home run off the bat of Xander Bogarts, and he is right-hander Brett Marshall called on here in the 5th. Marshall, one of the very recent call-ups, called up from AAA Scranton on Sunday. This is his second stint with the big league club. He came up actually between games of a doubleheader back in mid-May. And he strikes out Shane Victorino to end things in the 5th, not before another Boston home run can add to the lead. Middle of the afternoon, and it's all Red Sox in the Bronx today. Is sponsored by Chevrolet. Find new roads. Find river access to get up to the Bronx on a gorgeous afternoon in Manhattan and all across the eastern seaboard. A 12-2 lead for the Red Sox in the middle of the day. Bottom half of the 5th, back with Tim McCarver and Ken Rosenthal, Matt Vasgersian. John Lackey, the beneficiary of all this generous offense today. Again, working with more runs of support than he has all season long. And he gets Robinson Cano to start things in the 5th. Cano, Soriano, and Granderson for the Yankees. Well, as Joe Girardi said when we visited with him earlier, we just got to slow down Boston's roll. Forget about what we're doing offensively. We got to stop those guys. Boston's now scored in 6 of the last 8 innings they've played in the series, a total of 21 runs. And look at Xander Bogarts flashing the skills on both sides of the scorecard today.
After that spectacular home run, I mean that low tracer over the visitors' bullpen, a barehanded pickup, and you could back-to-back those two. The home run, his first major league home run, and that play, and that tells you a lot about the Aruba sensation, Xander Bogarts.
One gone for Alfonso Soriano. You know, it's not as though Xander Bogarts was a well-hidden secret.
No.
Quite the contrary. But one could probably say that today has been his real coming out party. He's played well defensively, first extra base hit, and his first home run. He's doubled and homered today, giving us a little taste of what the Red Sox have been so excited about.
A young man who featured soccer, badminton when he was growing up. No organized, for the most part, no organized baseball leagues. He only played over the weekend a couple of times a week. So he's really not a finished product. He's a magnificent athlete, but he's not a finished product. When you think about the things that he can do, and he's done fairly well today, I think you'd say. You get an idea of what kind of future he's going to have with the Red Sox.
And now as Curtis Granderson stands in with 2 away, Ken Rosenthal, it's likely more than just a little look-see for Red Sox Nation. Xander Bogarts is going to be around in some capacity next year.
No question. And they're not going to give up on Stephen Drew this year. He has had kind of an underrated season for them. But there is no question that Bogarts is the future. And I remember John Farrell telling us earlier this season, He lights up a room. He speaks 5 languages or so, and he's just the kind of guy that is infectious on a club, as well as being exceedingly talented.
He can not only hit and field, but he can tell you in 5 languages how he does it.
There's a bouncing ball to first as Napoli flips to Lackey. A very quick 1-2-3, bottom of the 5th. It's still 12-3 Boston. By Taco Bell's new fiery Doritos Locos Tacos, Live Más. And by AT&T, helping you do what you do even better. AT&T, rethink possible. (12-3) Boston as we start the top half of the 6th inning. Johnny Gomes will start things out against the reliever Brett Marshall. Gomes, Pedroia, and Ortiz here for the Red Sox in their half of the 6th. Well, despite the losses the first 2 games of the series by the Yankees, their 2.5 game deficit in the American League wild card stays in check. That's grounded for Derek Jeter, and a bad throw is going to let Gomes reach base safely to start the 6th. That looked like an awkward play off the bat.
Yeah, it could be scored as a base hit. Jeter going to his right does have a chance to get in front of it, then overthrows toward the outfield side. I think I'd give him a hit, but I'm not sure. I'm not really convinced, but it is ruled a hit.
Third hit of the afternoon for Johnny Gomes. Now Dustin Pedroia. Part of the reason that the Yankees deficit in the wild card has been held at 2.5 is that the Tampa Bay Rays have fallen on some recent brief hard times. Tampa Bay plays tonight on the West Coast once again. They're in Seattle with Chris Archer on the mound. As we keep mind of who else in this wild card race is doing what on this Saturday night. Dustin Pedroia sends a ball to deep right. Ichiro back on this one at the wall, makes the catch. Monday on Fox Sports 1, get an inside look at the Boston Red Sox as the greatest rivalry in sports continues in the Bronx. The Sox are the forerunners in the AL East and are fighting to keep control of the division against these resurgent Yankees, securing a trip to October. Mission October, Boston strong. Here's Monday, only on Fox Sports 1. And Tim, you and I will be in Fenway Park next week as this series shifts venues.
Boston Yankees redo.
Final 3 of the season head-to-head between the Sox and Yankees next weekend. Here's David Ortiz with 1 out and 1 on. Ortiz has a double. He's scored a run and driven in another today. And like a number of his teammates, has done fine work against the Yankees this season, batting .350 in the season series with New York. Brett Marshall came on in the 5th and recorded the final out of the inning. David Huff got the start today. And in this opportunity to make his first start as a Yankee, struggled, gave up the 2 home runs and was sent to an early exit. Jim Miller came on as the first line of relief, and now it's Brett Marshall. Full count, 3-2. There's another one of the Yankees' problems this weekend. Mike Napoli waiting on deck. Here's the payoff pitch to Ortiz. It's fouled away. Right-handed reliever against the left-handed power hitter David Ortiz. Man aboard with 1 away, and the Yankees really not in the kind of shift we've seen New York and other teams play for Big Papi this year. That's about as conventional as it gets, with the exception of Nunez at third, I guess.
I think that has changed. That thinking has changed to, with a runner on at first base, there's more concern about a double play or keeping a double play in order with a more conventional defense. Not nearly as drastic as with nobody on. And the other thing over the last year, I think, is there's more of a propensity of major league teams to play right-handed hitters in the shift.
Yeah, we've seen that today with Alfonso Soriano.
Right. And prior to this year, I don't remember seeing it that often.
The next 3-2 to Ortiz is again fouled away. Well, it seems at every turn that there's a guy with a spreadsheet in the clubhouse. And there are certain teams that have taken that to the nth degree.
Well, I think the one thing the Red Sox ownership, from reading some of the clips this week about the Red Sox, that the same statistical formula put last year's team together and it was the same formula that put this year's team together. The difference is in what we talked about earlier, and that's these guys like Gomes, like Victorino, keeping Big Papi, of course, in place, and Pedroia, and the right mix in the clubhouse.
It ain't all math.
No, it's not. And it's foolish to think it is. And I think that's one thing John Henry was quoted as saying this week.
Bouncing ball to first. Overbay goes to Jeter for one. The relay back to Huff covering, and the unconventional 3-6-1 double play puts a quick end to the top of the sixth.
After Greinke walked Joey Votto to load the bases with one out, he struck out Jay Bruce and Ryan Ludwig. Bottom five, Dodgers up a run, 3-2 in Baltimore. Brian Roberts hitting the leadoff this afternoon for Buck Showalter, and he explodes. That's his fifth of the year of Hector Santiago to tie the game for the O's. 2-2 to score, top six. Back to the Bronx we go with Matt Vasgersian and Tim Carter.
Greg, thanks, and we bring you back with a Fox Sports 1 pitcher comparison presented by Fox Sports 1, now available on all TV providers. Go to foxsports1.com to find out what channel, and we break down the Yankees bullpen as Eduardo Nunez leads things off in the sixth. It'll be Nunez leading things off against Mike Napoli, followed by Overbay and Suzuki. This run that the Yankees made wasn't just Alfonso Soriano. The bullpen largely responsible for the push they made at the end of August. However, in September, most notably this last weekend in September, the bullpen has not fared nearly as well as those numbers illustrate. You got John McDonald taking over at second base, a straight change as he replaces Dustin Pedroia from here on out. One of the veterans acquired by the Red Sox down the stretch. 3-0 to Nunez, and he dances out of the way of ball four. Leadoff walk here in the sixth. Not to put the cart before the horse, so to speak here, Tim, but John Farrell and his staff are going to have some really interesting decisions to make in terms of crafting a postseason roster this year.
A very, very good point and a good question. In fact, we talked to John. Our first question this morning was, if the postseason started tomorrow, would you have the speedster Quentin Berry on the roster? And he thought for a second, and he said, well, maybe for the first round, if we could prune a pitcher and leave a pitcher off the first round, or in the second round. where you have the best 4 out of 7, you'd be more inclined to do it with the best 3 out of 5 because you're not going to need the depth in pitching that you would with 4 out of 7. But he said maybe for the first round, but not the second round. Maybe. But at least that's an example of what you were saying. They are so talented. Do you carry Bogarts, for instance?
Yeah.
Or do you put Stephen Drew there?
It's a great debate.
It really is.
And they are certainly not without their opportunities. Here's Lyle Overbay striking out. Well, if Quentin Berry is to make that postseason roster, it might remind folks of one of the biggest moments in Red Sox franchise history, recent vintage, 2004, the Dave Roberts stolen base. Pinch running for Kevin Millar, a big bag in Game 4 of the 2004 ALCS. He later scored on the Bill Miller single. That tied the game at 4. The Red Sox won it in 12 on David Ortiz's dramatic home run, part of one of the most memorable postseasons in Red Sox-Yankees recent history. Here's Ichiro now with the runner aboard. I think it would be hard not to include Quentin Berry on that roster for that very reason. It gives you that, for lack of a better comparison, that Herb Washington designated runner. Quentin Berry's never been thrown out, ever.
22 straight steals to start his major league career. Jacoby Ellsbury had 25. And we're not saying that Quentin Berry would be helpful to the Red Sox in really any other area other than speed. Maybe late inning defense, but for whom are you going to defend? Maybe Johnny Gomes in left field? Perhaps. But that means playing the wall at Fenway Park, something with which he's unfamiliar.
Right. Well, the outfield is very well spoken for in Boston. That is assuming Jacoby Ellsbury's foot heals up nicely.
Right.
And I don't think the Red Sox are assuming anything other than that. But Ken Rosenthal, if you're to make an educated guess here, do we see Quentin Berry in the fall?
I'm not sure, Matt, honestly. And it's a really interesting decision. I see all the points you guys are making, but it is a squeeze, as you know, and there will be a number of decisions. I'll give you one more decision facing another team right now, or that another team is facing. Same kind of decision as with Quentin Berry. Cincinnati Reds, Billy Hamilton.
Yeah.
Billy Hamilton, the other night, you guys all saw it. He stole his first major league base off Yadier Molina. He has stolen hundreds of bases in the minor leagues. That's what he does. He, too, is a weapon.
Billy Hamilton with 3 stolen bases in his 3 opportunities to play. Scored a couple of runs. What did he steal? 700 bases last year? AAA? I mean, it's obscene, the totals that this guy has been able to post. He might finally have a guy that's capable of threatening Rickey Henderson's single season stolen base mark someday.
If he could get on first base enough. Quentin Berry, not a good offensive player. He's a good defensive player. He had a fine year with Detroit last year. And Jim Leland, a comment from him this week saying that he's happy for him that he's landed another job in the big leagues, and certainly he could be going against Detroit in the 9th inning, running for Big Papi.
Well, wouldn't that be something?
Wouldn't that be something?
Just the thought of a quote September call up, and Quentin Berry is more than that because he's been here in the big leagues before, but of a guy who spent most of the year in AAA, potentially having a role as significant as he may have in the postseason. That's what October baseball is all about. Different set of circumstances in a different position, but you think about the role that David Price had in 2008 for the Rays. His first run through the league coming at the most crucial time.
Recording the last out in that first round, I believe.
You're right about that. There's ball 4 to put runners at first and second with 1 away. This game summary is brought to you by Domino's, and it's been all Boston. 3 Red Sox home runs, including the first in the career of Xander Bogarts. John Lackey finally gets some runs to work with, 12 of them to be exact. Boston has been swinging the bats, 51 runs in their last 4 ball games. 2-run home run by Xander Bogarts. Home runs by Johnny Gomes and Mike Napoli today. Here's J.R. Murphy pinch hitting for Austin Romine. Murphy was used yesterday as a ninth-inning defensive replacement. Made his major league debut Monday. One of the September call-ups that got here on Sunday. If I'm guessing, I think his family might be in the ballpark this afternoon. Two balls and no strikes from John Lackey. 2-3-0 now. With that last pitch, the Boston bullpen got to its feet. There's a strike. It's 3-1 now to the pinch hitter J.R. Murphy. Punched out to the right side of the infield. Napoli to Bogarts. And that's all the Red Sox settled with. There are 2 away, runners at the corners. So Murphy aboard via the fielder's choice. Nunez to third now with 2 gone. For the top of the order, Brett Gardner. Gardner has singled and scored today. He's extended a modest hitting streak to 4 straight. As we mentioned earlier, at some point it's going to take a crooked number by the Yankees. Single scores in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Every game crucial for the Yankees, the team doing the chasing. 19 left for the Red Sox, 21 left for New York. Murphy's running without a throw down to second. I mean, you're getting into the home stretch when you start talking about a Red Sox magic number.
A lot of people don't even think it's late enough to talk about a magic number, but it is.
For a team with a 7.5 game division lead, and after today 18 left to play, I would agree. I mean, you could start talking magic number in the AL East. Certainly you could have had that discussion in the NL East in July. The way Atlanta has gone. A 14 game lead at the start of play over second place Washington. Ball and 2 strikes, the count to Brett Gardner. John Lackey up over 100 pitches at this point. Again, there's been bullpen activity behind him after the second base runner reached this inning. Not a lot of urgency there in terms of the pitching change equation with a 9-run lead late. Gardner shoots out into left. Gomes started in on it, and it's going to get over his head and bound up against the wall. Nunez scores easily. Here's Murphy right behind him, and it's a 2-run knock off the bat of Brett Gardner.
Quentin Berry would have made that play. I'm only kidding because that ball was down the line. A double for Brett Gardner. There's Johnny, who is not on the spot. on that particular play. John Lackey reacting. 7-run game. Tell you, with what has happened here at Yankee Stadium over the last 48 hours or so, I mean, to say you never know, it's kind of redundant.
Here's Derek Jeter now. Jeter 0 for 3 this afternoon. And the rust on the Yankee captain has been most notable in situations like this, with runners in scoring position. 3 for 18 since coming off the DL. A ball and a strike. Base hit back up the middle. This time the captain cashes in, and it's 12-6 Boston.
How many times over the years, since 1996 to be exact, have Yankee fans seen this? Base hit up the middle, Jeter to drive in a run.
Here comes John Farrell, and as much as you got the sense that he wanted to finish 6 with his starter, he feels like he needs to make a move with Robinson Cano due up.
It's a good call.
A pitching change, and we'll be right back. For your chance to win a sports room makeover. Well, after a bullpen makeover, the Red Sox relief corps has been outstanding. Matt Thornton's addition from the White Sox was a big part of that. He's making his 55th overall appearance of the season and his 15th in a Boston uniform. He'll do so with a pinch runner taking over at first as Mark Reynolds runs at first for Derek Jeter. Reynolds will likely stay in the ballgame and take over at third base. That'll move Nunez to short for the remainder of this afternoon, and Robinson Cano bats. Boston having seen its lead shrink a bit. 3 so far in the Yankee half of the 6th. A swing and a miss by Robinson Cano, who this afternoon has singled in a run extending a modest hitting streak to 6 in a row. Matt Thornton pitched here on Thursday night in the series opener, allowing both inherited runners to score. He was charged with 1 on his own watch. There's a base hit back up the middle. Reynolds pinch running for Jeter aboard at second. Runners at first and second now with 2 away.
That approach has made Robinson Cano a better hitter against left-handed pitching this year. That's the ability to handle that ball away. Good slider from Thornton, not quite outside like he wanted it. Single up the middle by Cano. That's a tough pitch and good hitting by Cano.
Well, now Joe Girardi has a matchup that he likes.
Oh, yeah.
Alfonso Soriano. Thornton misses the outside corner with a breaking ball. It's 0-1.
And why is that? The biggest reason is for Thornton to be effective, the slider's got to be down and away to left-handers, which is right in the wheelhouse of Soriano. Like close to there.
You know, the thought of the Yankees overcoming a 9-run deficit to the Boston Red Sox is not so far-fetched. In fact, you and Joe Buck were here last April to witness such an uprising.
Ah, yes, I remember it well.
That game was actually at Fenway, but the same 2 uniforms.
Maybe I didn't remember it that well.
Soriano singles into left. Here comes Reynolds. They're going to wave him around to score. 12-7 Boston.
Might have to question whether these guys are hitting off a tee or not. I mean, it's just not that easy to continue to hit major league pitching like you know it's coming. That, by the way, is that ball down and in to Soriano that you were talking about, Matty. Even 3-0 swinging, and that's an interesting move by Girardi to allow him to swing when you're trailing by 6 runs. An outside chance of a 3-run home run. He did drive in 1 run. Things are getting very interesting between the white lines now.
You bet they are. And Juan Nieves comes out to discuss things with his left-hander. Curtis Granderson will be the 9th Yankee to bat in the inning.
31 home runs against left-handed pitching since 2011, the most in baseball.
Cano and Soriano aboard, 4 runs in the inning. Strike 1 to Granderson. Curtis is 0 for 3 so far this afternoon. John Lackey went 5 2/3. Oh and 2. A lot of matchup history here between Matt Thornton and Curtis Granderson, what with their AL Central backgrounds and all. And Thornton's had the better of him. Curtis is just 3 for 19 career against Matt Thornton. A ball and 2 strikes.
I think Kurt is going to see that pitch again, that slider low and away. Thornton tries to make him bite.
Fly ball out to to center. Can of corn style for Jackie Bradley to wrap up a troubling inning if you're a Red Sox fan. The Yankees come off the mat to score 4. 12-7 Boston will return to New York after a word from your local Fox station. After the 7th inning with quite a different dialogue, just a 5-run game now. You saw Eduardo Nunez take over at shortstop. Mark Reynolds stays in the game at third, as we guessed. And finally, it's the young catcher taking over behind the plate, J.R. Murphy, after pinch hitting for Austin Romine. Mike Napoli leads things off for Boston with a bouncer to short. That finds you on the position change, as Eduardo Nunez will tell you. And there's one gone for Brett Marshall to start the 7th. Standard Red Sox Yankees fare for those just joining us. 12-7 Boston the score. The Red Sox have never trailed today. They have benefited from their substantial long ball prowess, 3 of them today. 12 runs on 12 hits, and the Yankees have made it interesting with a 4-run uprising in the 6th.
And they have 9 outs left to score 5 runs to tie, unless the Red Sox add on to their 12 runs.
How good do you feel about this game ending 12-7?
There is no chance for this game to end 12-7.
0-2 the count to Will Middlebrooks.
I don't feel bad going out on a limb saying that at all.
I mean, that's just the way this series has gone.
Yeah.
Base hit for Middlebrooks.
We talked about it earlier. You talk about a guy playing with a lot of confidence. I mean, the trade of Jose Iglesias to the Detroit Tigers, now a big part of that, of the success of Detroit, and opening things up for Middlebrooks. You can almost see it in his gait now, the way he walks, the way he carries himself. It doesn't have to worry about that anymore.
There's Jackie Bradley Jr. now with Middlebrooks aboard. Well, it had to have been something of a hard pill to swallow if you were Will Middlebrooks. He burst upon the scene last year, made a real impact as a rookie. was on the opening day roster, and then 53 games into the season was reassigned to AAA Pawtucket. Went down there, however, with a purpose. One of the things the Red Sox wanted to do with him was work on his approach against breaking balls. They felt like there was a vulnerability there. So they closed off his stance ever so slightly, evened up his feet in the batter's box, and made him, I guess, more Paul Molitor and less Brian Downing, if you will. And it seems to have worked. He's come back and has had a lot of success since that reassignment to the Paw Sox. 0-2 to Jackie Bradley. Bounces away from Murphy, and Middlebrooks will scurry down to second.
Excellent base running by Will Middlebrooks. That ball did not go in the dirt. I beg your pardon, it did go in the dirt. A better play by Murphy than I originally thought, but Middlebrooks taking advantage of it by going into second base standing up.
So a chance for Bradley to knock in a run. Instead, he swings and misses at a breaking ball, and there are 2 away in the inning. We're talking about Will Middlebrooks and his reassignment and subsequent success, Ken Rosenthal, and the future looking bright on the Red Sox left side with a couple of players. We've talked a lot about Xander Bogarts, but Middlebrooks plans to be in that equation as well.
Absolutely, Matt. And right before the trade deadline, some teams inquired about Middlebrooks, trying to trade for him, trying to buy low, thinking his value might be down. The Brewers were one of those teams, talking about K-Rod, thinking maybe they could steal Will Middlebrooks. Well, the Red Sox never even considered trading him. They still saw him then as a valuable part of their future, and he's proving them correct.
Well, he's a guy that pushed a couple of veterans out the door with his emergence last year, and it stands to reason that he would still be in the long-term plans. There's Ryan Lavarnway, the drive to left that Soriano has a play on to retire the side. Nothing comes of the one-out single. 7th inning stretch in the Bronx. 12-7 Boston. Bayer Advanced Aspirin, the official pain reliever of Major League Baseball. And by Chevrolet, find new roads. Back with Tim McCarver and Ken Rosenthal, Matt Vasgersian at Yankee Stadium. Yes, it's your standard Red Sox-Yankees line through 6.5. 7th inning stretch in the Bronx. It's 12-7 Boston. And as we look at the scores, Timmy, from the last handful of Red Sox-Yankees games in this season series.
Give them to me.
Back on the 18th at Fenway, that was the Dempster A-Rod flap.
Right.
9-6. Sunday night, 9-6. Thursday, 9-8. Yesterday, 12-8. And today, what do we got here? Another one.
12-7. 19 runs, 23 hits. Over 3 hours right now, and that's what happens when you score a lot of runs. It takes time.
You bet. And with rosters expanded as they are, a lot of pitching change options, the Yankees have used that as one of their attempts to at least keep the Red Sox close in this series all weekend long. A new pitcher for the Red Sox here. They're on their second reliever of the day. Boston started it with John Lackey. Matt Thornton pitched last inning, and now it's Drake Britton here in the 7th.
Drake, one of the fine young arms that the Red Sox have in their bullpen. Good-looking young left-hander.
Bullpen coach Mike Harkey talking with future Hall of Famer Mariano Rivera. Enjoying a light moment, and with plenty of time to do so on a day like today.
The one thing we asked Joe Girardi, and he would love to be in this position now, if need be, with David Robertson out, would it be possible for Rivera to come into the game in the 8th inning? Be unlikely, Joe said, but then he kind of threw up his hands and said, look, I just don't know. Maybe. But maybe a 4-out save. Who knows? But Joe would love to be in that position right now, trailing by 5.
You bet. Well, 20 games left for the Yankees after today. And I don't think anybody's in a position to say never around here.
Right.
There's Eduardo Nunez to start things against the left-handed reliever Drake Britton, who made his major league debut earlier this season back on the 20th of July against the Yankees. Had been recalled from AAA Pawtucket earlier that week. He's a young left-hander who began the season all the way down in AA Portland. He was an all-star in the Eastern League, promoted Pawtucket, and then eventually gets right here to the big leagues. Hey, that's a fair ball. And Nunez is out, 1 away in the 7th.
Good play by Middlebrooks to snag that ball quickly before it went foul. Right there. Good play. That we saw earlier in the game, the third base umpire calling the play because the ball had gone past third. The home plate umpire, Sam Holbrook, made that call because the ball hadn't reached third yet. Good call. And a good quick play by Middlebrooks.
Here's Lyle Overbay now with 1 away. Overbay has singled in a run this afternoon. You know, the way the Yankees started out the season, beating expectations and doing so with players like Lyle Overbay, Vernon Wells, Travis Hafner taking center stage. It was thought that that group of veteran players who were brought in here as almost recon guys, if you will, to borrow a military term, they were going to keep the ship right until Jeter and Granderson, and at the time it was thought Mark Teixeira may have a chance to return. And they did just that. The Yankees played very well in April and May, thanks in no small measure to the contributions of that aforementioned group. It was hard to sustain, as we have since learned looking back.
And as everybody knew, even the Yankees knew that. No way to keep that up.
Two balls and 2 strikes, the count to Lyle Overbay. Well hit into the opposite field. Gomes looking back, drifting and making the catch. Oh, Johnny.
Even Johnny has to smile about it. Almost did a 360. Watch the big smile. Coming out of it. There it is.
Yeah. A little more intensity by the rookie left-hander on the mound. 2 gone for Ichiro. Little bouncer to first from Mike Napoli. And it's a 1-2-3 7th by the rookie southpaw. On to the 8th. Red Sox still up by 5. Around Yankee Stadium, thanks to the Fox Sports 1 fan cam, brought to you by Fox Sports 1, available on all TV providers. Go to foxsports1.com and find out what channel. Top half of the 8th inning, and Xander Bogarts will lead things off for Boston as the reliever Brett Marshall sticks around. He has given Joe Girardi some crucial long relief innings this afternoon and given them at least a puncher's chance. A one-time 9-run deficit has been cut to a 12-7 disadvantage. That's after the Yankees played it 4 in the 6th inning. It's Bogarts, Victorino, and Gomes here in the 8th.
Steve Donahue, the trainer of the Yankees, talking to Joe Girardi, and they look serious.
The fly ball out to center for Brett Gardner, and there's one away. Well, as we mentioned earlier, Derek Jeter was removed from the ball game earlier, and we did not have any indication that it was a health-related decision. No less curious that Jeter should be removed.
Sure. I didn't think about it at the time, but certainly bring up a valid point.
Yeah, nor did I. We might be connecting imaginary dots here.
That's true.
Hey, that's a fair ball. That started out in foul territory and had some really kind of funky Minnesota Fats body English on it that brought it right back into fair territory.
That fat man can really move. Wasn't that Paul Newman's line in that movie, the great movie, The Hustler? Look at that fat man move.
Look at that baseball move.
Well, yeah. Well, you mentioned Minnesota Fats and the who's that? George C. Scott, Piper Laurie, I believe, was in that movie.
Wow, look at you.
Yeah.
I believe that's the role.
Jackie Gleason was Minnesota Fats.
That's right. Paul Newman won his only Best Actor.
I think that's right.
Oscar for that.
I think that's right.
Back to you. 0-1 to count to Johnny Gomes with 2 gone now.
Asking George C. Scott to move his chair, and he moved it about 1.5 inches.
Johnny Gomes refused to move. That breaking ball clips him in the thigh, and the Red Sox have a 2-out base runner. He leaned into that Fernando Vina style. So Gomes aboard as a hit batsman. And for anybody, speaking of connecting dots, for anybody at home trying to connect that to Ryan Dempster and Alex Rodriguez on Sunday, August 18th, it had nothing to do with that.
No.
There's a one-hop shot off the bat of John McDonald that wraps things up in the top of the 8th. Yankees running out of chances this afternoon, still down in the 8th. Is sponsored by Fox Sports 1. To find your channel, go to foxsports1.com. And by Mazda. We believe if it's not worth driving, it's not worth building. Now the Red Sox have built themselves a big lead this afternoon. One that the Yankees were able to cut into a bit, but a 12-7 advantage remains for visiting Boston, trying to make it 3 in a row here in the Bronx. J.R. Murphy will lead things off against the rookie left-hander Drake Britton, who sticks around for his second inning of relief. And among the things that we need to clean up today, as Murphy strokes a base hit into left. They'll make the youngster 2 for 2 today. Much to the delight of a sizable family gathering here in the Bronx today. So the leadoff hitter aboard now for the top of the order, Brett Gardner. So among the things we need to clean up, getting back to that, first of all, Murphy reached on a fielder's choice in his last plate appearance, so that was his first hit of the day. The other thing, and perhaps more importantly, Paul Newman won his only Academy Award for The Color of Money, not for The Hustler. There's a breaking ball taken for a strike. 0-2 to Brett Gardner, who's got 2 hits today. 12 runs on 13 hits for Boston, 7 runs on 11 hits for the Yankees.
We were 1 for 2 with that movie. Piper Laurie was the female lead in that movie.
We got the important part right there.
That's correct.
A ball and 2 strikes to Gardner. At least one more pass today guaranteed for the likes of Cano, Soriano, and Granderson, the home run threats in the Yankee lineup. There's another one waiting on deck for that matter in the form of Mark Reynolds, who will be making his first plate appearance of the day. He came on to run for Derek Jeter in the 6th. And again, no word as to why Jeter was removed. That one bounces away at the plate. Murphy advances to second.
It could go as a pass ball on Ryan Lavarnway. He's had looks like a tough time with his mitt control today, whether to catch it with the thumb down or the thumb up.
Has scored a pass ball charged to Lavarnway, a young catcher who is still admittedly, at least according to some in the Boston clubhouse, including John Farrell, a young player learning his craft.
I think instead of a pass ball, they should change that to a catcher's error. No other position has a ball hit a glove, and in the official scorer's decision-making process, is it anything but an error? I mean, it doesn't really go against a catcher's defense.
And there's ball 4. And now you're into the meat of the order with Mark Reynolds, Robinson Cano, and then Soriano.
Yeah, that was a situation where Lavarnway almost did it again. Here it is on the 3-ball count. He's having a very difficult time picking up Drake Britton.
Well, Ryan Lavarnway only started catching in college at Yale. Not a kid who had strapped on the gear in high school. And now a little discussion on the mound as the Red Sox bullpen gets busy once again. A chance for us to remind you that tonight Fox College Saturday rolls on as Louisiana battles K-State on Fox Sports 1, and West Virginia tries to upset number 16 Oklahoma right here on Fox. Then in the nightcap, Washington State takes on 25th ranked USC on Fox Sports 1.
Before this game's over, Matt, we may have, for one of the few times this year, an all-Yale battery. Craig Breslow and Ryan Lavarnway.
Ball 1 to Mark Reynolds. Yeah, and if that happens, not that Yale offers, basket weaving and bench painting. You're talking about two guys who majored in, I believe, biomolecular physics, and that was Breslow's major, and Ryan Lavarnway was a philosophy major at Yale. Into the corner, past Middlebrooks, and here come the Yankees in the 8th. Murphy scores. Gardner scores. 12-9 Boston.
2 on, double down the line. Now it's a 3-run ball game. Still nobody out here in the 8th inning. And Reynolds on at second base.
Robinson Cano, the batter. Alfonso Soriano on deck as the tying run. Junichi Tozawa up in the Boston bullpen on an afternoon where closer Koji Uehara is not available. And for much of the afternoon, Tim, you didn't think that was going to be a big deal for Boston.
Yeah, we asked John Farrell who would be his closer. More likely than not, he said Craig Breslow. So we'll see.
These close and late situations magnify how versatile the Yankees lineup is. Despite all of its shortcomings from the right side, despite all the injuries, Joe Girardi still has the luxury of going right, left, as he did to start the day today, starting with Brett Gardner and taking him all the way through the bottom third of the order. It's very difficult to stunt and counter a lineup with such diversity. Reynolds with a sizable leadoff second. The 0-2 home to Cano. Fly ball into the opposite field. Gomes calls off Bradley. And that's the first out of the inning.
Not only an out, but an out in the right part of the field as far as the Red Sox are concerned. Because now Reynolds has to stay at second base. And a pitching change by John Farrell.
They want the right-hander Junichi Tozawa for Alfonso Soriano. A pitching change. We'll be right back. To try to quiet down what's become a loud late Yankee offense today. Tozawa making his 64th appearance on the season. He worked the opener Thursday night and allowed a couple of runs on 3 hits while allowing both of his inherited base runners to score. He was charged with his 8th blown save of the season that night. A runner in scoring position with 2 runs in and only 1 away in the New York half of the 8th. And the troubling presence of Alfonso Soriano due up.
More than any other Red Sox bullpenner, Tazawa has struggled, and struggled a lot over the last month. It's a huge issue in this game without having Uehara available.
Tazawa will work out of the stretch with the runner at second, and starts with a strike to Soriano. The change to a right-hander here, something of a no-brainer when you're talking about Alfonso Soriano's splits. Hits for better average and power throughout his career against the left-handed relievers, left-handed pitchers for that matter. And this season is no exception. And as hot as he's been as a Yankee, John Farrell was unwilling to take any chances. Behind now 0-2.
We talked about Lavarnway having a difficult time with the picking up of Drake Britton. Perhaps that was caused by that shadow in front of home plate. Very difficult, particularly in the month of September, getting into fall. Those shadows play havoc.
Just a little look in and fake throw back to second to keep Reynolds honest out there. Curtis Granderson waits on deck as the potential tying run with 1 away in the 8th. A ball and 2 strikes now to Alfonso Soriano. That one fouled off the fists. It stays 1-2. Despite Tazawa's struggles, and as you mentioned, Tim, they have been pronounced. The Red Sox bullpen as a group has been terrific since being reshuffled with Uehara as the closer. In fact, Boston's coming off a 9-game homestand in which the bullpen worked just over 23 innings to the tune of a .76 ERA, allowing only a 136 opponent's batting average. And Soriano pops it up. McDonald in the tough sun field for the 2nd out of the inning.
This can straighten a guy out like Tazawa. Remember the pitch before Soriano, that ball up and in, setting up this pitch? You could tell by the swing. Impressed him with the fastball inside, and then came back with a slider. The slider wasn't as good a slider as it could have been, but it was good enough, particularly after coming in. That's what Tazawa's got to do with Franklin Morales, the left-hander, warming for the Red Sox.
So now it's Curtis Granderson, the only Yankee to have failed to reach base this afternoon. And a breaking ball starts him with strike 1.
Pitching is such a fine art, Matt. Often it's not the pitch that you make, it's how you got to the pitch that you make. And that up and in, blowing away is a formula that's been used in baseball for years like a pick and roll in basketball.
0-1 the count to Curtis Granderson.
You know it's going to happen. You can't do anything about it.
Fly ball to left. Gomes can't see it. And picks it up late to retire the side. Johnny just happened to be in the right spot.
There.
12-9 Boston. Brett Marshall continues. Top half of the ninth inning as David Ortiz leads things off for Boston. Ortiz, Napoli, and Middlebrooks. And a one-time runaway train has been slowed down. The Red Sox, having scored runs in innings 2 through 5, a total of 12 during that period, have been kept off the scoreboard in the 6th, 7th, and 8th, largely in part to Brett Marshall's work on the mound. 2 balls and no strikes. The count home to David Ortiz. Big Papi has doubled, scored, and driven in a run today. As he takes a strike, it's 2-1. David Ortiz always with that ability to push the setting sun back into the sky. When his detractors get hot and talk about how Big Papi's getting old and his heel hurts and look how cold he is, he has that really magical ability to kind of turn things around. And he's done it recently.
He really has.
That's bounced foul, the full count. And Ortiz endured a miserable stretch recently. August 19th through the 29th, 0 for. No hits in 22 at-bats. Since then, it's just Big Papi of old. At .333 average, couple of dingers, 11 runs batted in. 2 home runs, of course, coming on the same night against the Tigers on Wednesday, a night that included his 2,000th career hit. Still the full count, 3 balls and 2 strikes. And a swing and a miss. I can't say enough about what Brett Marshall has given the Yankees in relief this afternoon.
Second strikeout, make that the 3rd strikeout by Brett Marshall. He did allow the Bogarts 2-run home run, but just 2 runs in 4 1/3 innings. In a day like today with these 2 teams going at each other is very good.
Here's Mike Napoli now. Napoli has homered again this afternoon. He hit a grand slam last night in game 2 of the series and a 2-run homer today that opened the scoring. With all the relievers unavailable today, Tim, and we've talked about that throughout the telecast, most notably Boone Logan and David Robertson, 2 of the close and late specialists that Joe Girardi likes to use in big spots. Now, this very easily could have gotten out of hand a lot earlier. Mike Napoli again. Boston's September superstar.
You know, Mike Napoli's winter workout partner was 3 years ago in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Miguel Cabrera, and now he's hitting like him.
His 2nd home run of the afternoon, number 21 for the year, and it makes it a 13-9 Red Sox lead.
Just awesome power. More beard tugging.
I mean, these are big, dramatic, Dave Kingman eat your heart out home runs.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. The Kong. He did it at Shea Stadium. He also did it in Chicago. Those are monstrous Kingman-type home runs.
Middlebrooks is backed up on a breaking ball. It's 2-1. No cheapies today. Both of Napoli's have been long out of here. Bogarts hit one over the visiting bullpen in left. Johnny Gomes hit one high, deep, and dramatic to left field.
It's like the cough drops. Isn't that Smith brother cough drops?
Yeah.
Are they still around?
And there's ball 4 to Will Middlebrooks.
Probably not. For all of you youngsters who may not remember that, there were cough drops with 2 bearded men on either end of the box. Smith brothers cough drops. I grew up on those things.
And when those guys are standing together, when it's Napoli, Pedroia is the guy that keeps it neat, but
yeah, kind of neat. Yeah, only because it's shortly shorn. Right.
I mean, they look like a group of men that should be crafting artisan beers someplace in Brooklyn. Or maybe lugging audio equipment down from the mountains after a band reunion up there. 2 balls and no strikes, the count to Jackie Bradley Jr. The Oakland A's had the Mustache Gang teams under Charlie Finley, or despite Charlie Finley in the early 70s.
72, 3 and 4, right? Charlie paid them $300 a player to grow a mustache. And believe me, under Charlie Finley, that was a lot of money. Charlie didn't, he threw nickels around like manhole covers.
I don't know that such financial bonusing exists in Boston, but it has become something that the team has embraced.
It's really true.
2 balls and a strike to count to Jackie Bradley.
Jackie in the early stages of his hirsuteness.
Yeah, Jackie might have a little ways to go to catch up to Napoli and Pedroia.
Yeah.
Fouled away, and it's still 2 balls and 2 strikes. Back to Mike Napoli for a moment. Remember what he did against the Angels as a Ranger after leaving Anaheim to sign with Texas? I mean, he was a one-man wrecking crew against his old employer.
He was.
He's hit 4 home runs in September, 2 of them today, but 6 home runs against the Yankees this season. Hall of Famer Jimmy Fox has the most in a season versus New York. He hit 8 in 1936. Point being here, Mike Napoli goes to the Rangers and beats up the Angels. Mike Napoli goes to the Red Sox and beats up the Yankees. He's doing it against the regional rival at the time of year when it counts most. There goes Middlebrooks, and Bradley fouls that one away once again. Well, Joe Girardi has been given some bad news on the injury front this homestand alone. Yesterday with Boone Logan, he had to endure the short start by David Huff today. And earlier we saw him visiting with members of the training staff, and we guessed the conversation may have to do with Derek Jeter's being removed from the game. Ken Rosenthal, is there an update there? Were we connecting imaginary dots, or was Derek Jeter removed due to some injury?
No, those dots were real, Matt, and he was removed due to an issue with an area near his surgically repaired left ankle. And you see on this play, threw wide, he had trouble planting, and my understanding is that he was removed because that area, whether the ankle or the foot, is affecting him.
Yeah, wow.
That's a long throw he had to make from the hole, and he threw it errantly. A lot of times that left foot, when you're making a throw, the foot is pointed toward the target. Derek's foot with that particular throw was not pointed toward the target. Here it is one more time. Watch his left foot. He's throwing to first base. It's not pointed to first base. Therein could be the problem.
A runner at second now with 2 away after Bradley grounds out, and it's Ryan Lavarnway now. But what a frustrating season it's been for Derek Jeter. And you know, you can sense the energy in the ballpark change, even when Derek has to turn a double play, as was the case earlier in this series. To drive out to left, this one's going to stay in the ballpark for Soriano to retire the side. However, Mike Napoli's second home run of the afternoon has made it 13-9 Boston. has given Junichi Tozawa a little bit more room with which to work. A 13-9 Red Sox advantage as Tozawa tries to get this one into the clubhouse against Eduardo Nunez, leading things off here in the ninth. Nunez, Overbay, and Ichiro Suzuki. The last line of resistance by the Yankees perhaps today. 13 runs on 14 hits for Boston, and included in the damage 4 home runs, a pair by Mike Napoli. Strike one to Eduardo Nunez, who has doubled and scored a couple of runs this afternoon. Well, regardless of what happens this afternoon, the Yankees will be doing a little scoreboard watching tonight out in the West Coast when the Mariners host the Tampa Bay Rays. And if Seattle can do New York another favor this afternoon, the Yankees again for the 3rd straight day won't lose any ground in the wild card race. So that one moves Nunez off the plate.
They won't lose ground, but they'll lose more time. And time is not on their side right now.
You're down to 20 games left in the season after this afternoon. Ball and 2 strikes. Texas, Tampa Bay, they've got the wild card spots as of this moment. Of course, with Texas and Oakland being so close in the AL West, that equation evolves. The A's lead that division by a half game. Baltimore and Cleveland also in the Yankees' way and trying to get to that second wild card spot. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Nunez.
You mentioned the Oakland Athletics, one of the most entertaining teams in the game, and a team you cannot figure out. You look at their individual numbers, they're not there.
Yeah. Had some down years by 2 of the guys that brought them there last year, and Josh Reddick and Yoenis Cespedes, yet still the A's continue to win. Nunez pops this one up for Lavarne way behind the plate, and there's one away.
We talked earlier about managers of the year. Should it be John Farrell or Joe Girardi? You can again throw Bob Melvin into that mix.
No doubt. Time for the Burger King plays of the game, and their responsible party, Xander Bogarts, who really had his coming out party this afternoon, making his 3rd big league start at shortstop, had a great defensive afternoon, added his first big league home run to the mix, along with a double. Xander Bogarts responsible for our Burger King plays of the game. Burger King, where taste is king. Lyle Overbay with 1 gone now. With that home run by Napoli in the top of the 9th. And you might be at home saying, well, 3-run game, 4-run game, what's the difference? It was a spirit crusher, if nothing else. Now, the Yankees had fought back today, 4 in the 6th, 2 in the 8th. A one-time 9-run deficit was cut to 3, and then Mike Napoli struck again. Three balls and no strikes. It can be done, and the glass half full Yankee fan might need to cite a very recent vintage. Just go back to 2011, what the Rays did at the 133 game mark, 9 back of first place, and they caught the wild card. The Cardinals that year, they were 10 back in the wild card race. They won the World Series. The landscape is littered, as they say, with such stories. There's ball 4. comes John Farrell, and he wants a left-hander for Ichiro. Taking advantage of that deep September bullpen, we'll have a one-out pitching change in the last of the ninth.
That is a very unhappy Tozawa. Unhappy with John Farrell. But the walk did him in. Between innings, that dugouts can be so cruel. I mean, there's Torey Lovullo, the only handshake that Junichi Tozawa got when he went in the dugout. And the reason was he walked that batter 4 runs up. And everybody knows, including Tozawa, they know that you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that, but he did it. And he walked back into that cold, cruel dugout. It's not a fun experience, believe me.
Well, the change has been made for the left-hander Craig Breslow. He'll look for the final 2 outs this afternoon. Ichiro Suzuki batting with 1 out and a base runner aboard. J.R. Murphy waits on deck. Breslow is credited with the win in the series opener on Thursday. 2 innings in relief, walked a batter and struck out a pair. He pitched a scoreless 8th to keep Boston within a run, and then a scoreless 9th to keep it tied.
And we have our Yale battery that we talked about a couple of innings ago.
We do indeed. The Yale philosophy major, Ryan Lavarnway, and the dual major on the mound. Not only, and I slighted Craig Breslow earlier, he was in fact a molecular biophysics major. Also a biochemistry major. So from that we'll be going to Greg Amsinger and Mitch Williams back at the MLB Network studios at the conclusion of this telecast. 2 balls and a strike to count to Ichiro.
Need a degree just to pronounce it.
No doubt. Wave and a miss, and it's 2 balls and 2 strikes now. Breslow has been well traveled and has plied his craft in Cleveland, Minneapolis, Oakland, Arizona, and Boston. Originally a Brewers draft choice back in 2002 out of Yale. And I missed San Diego among his major league stops. That's popped for Lavarnway. And the Yankees are down to their final out this afternoon. So we'll have a pinch hitter now. Joe Girardi's going to try to keep hope alive this afternoon with Vernon Wells. Wells started here last night. He drove in a run before being removed defensively in the 7th. He's just 6 for his last 25. Had such a terrific start to his Yankee career in April and May. Runner goes on the pitch, and on one hop, Xander Bogarts takes care of business, as does Craig Breslow and the Red Sox. They've made it 3 straight wins in this big 4-game weekend series. Let's get you out to Greg Amsinger and Mitch Williams back at the MLB Network studios.